Earlier this month, the 3 known survivors of the 1921 Tulsa massacre testified in Congress about the world they lost when a white mob burned their thriving community to the ground. "The neighborhood I fell asleep in that night was rich, not just in terms of wealth, but in culture, community and heritage," said Viola Fletcher, who was visiting the U.S. Capitol for the first time in her 107 years. Within a few hours, all of that was gone. After being willfully suppressed from the national memory for close to a century, in many ways the history of the massacre is now more visible than ever, in media, popular culture and even the U.S. Capitol. But this history, and the question of who has the right to tell it, remain contested. That is true even in Tulsa itself, where Black Tulsans say official centennial commemorations have obscured its lingering effects on their community and failed to meaningfully involve descendants of survivors and victims. We wanted to hear directly from those descendants about how the massacre affected their families, in 1921 and to this day. A number of themes emerge from the responses we received. One is the culture of silence that long surrounded the massacre. Most of the readers who responded told us they hadn't heard about it until well into their adult years. Another is a sense of pride over their links to such a historic locus of black prosperity. And yet another is a deep loss, over the relatives killed and displaced, the community erased and the wealth eradicated, wealth that could have changed the course of entire generations. My grandparents, an aunt and an uncle were survivors of the massacre. My grandparents were landowners as well as business owners. I did not hear about the race massacre until I was well into my adult years, probably my 40s. My grandmother, Daisy Scott, was a political cartoonist for the Tulsa Star. She drew cartoons that depicted the racial injustice of that time, and the funny thing is her illustrations fit right in with today's injustices still happening for black people. My grandfather, Jack Scott, was a professional boxer and one of the men who went down to the courthouse to protect Dick Rowland. A very brave man. This massacre affected our family in terms of generational wealth. My grandparents owned land on Greenwood Place that was taken by the city of Tulsa to build the University of Oklahoma. That land could have remained in our family's name and we could have benefited from it. Land never depreciates and it would have given our family members a running start. Barbara Barros, 65, writer and retired educatorI'm, the great-granddaughter and great-great-granddaughter of JB Stradford and his father, Julius Caesar, who were born into servitude. He was not given a last name during his servitude and adopted the surname Stradford. Julius instilled his education and ethic values onto his son.